My name is Max Mom, and this is my animation production process teaching block 1 submission. For our first submission, we had to make a robot in reference to something. I chose a Gundam as my reference, as I believe that using a more complicated shape, such as this Gundam robot itself, would allow me to have a better understanding and mastery over the tools which are needed to create basic models in Maya. Those tools being the Move tool, Scale tool, Rotate tool, and a bit more advanced ones are the Bevel tool and also the Edge Cut tool. With all these tools combined, I was able to make a lot of different shapes, combine them into making the final product, which was this. I'm quite proud of it, and I think it looks quite similar to the reference above. In order to create this robot, I had to use all these tools in conjunction and learn how to use it. This shape, the torso, was actually quite easy. Here you can see an example of me using the Edge Cut tool and the Move tool in conjunction to make the vents on the chest, the yellow part specifically. However, a shape that was way more complicated and complexed me a bit more in the beginning as I had less understanding of the tools were the legs. Specifically in this leg, it was the bottom part. As this leg had a lot of different shapes, faces, and different parts of the leg combined, it was hard to combine it and picture it all as one cube. So instead of doing it all in one cube, I chose to do it in different cubes so I can put all of them together. Specifically, I used the knee cube, I used then the thigh cube, the calf cube, and then the leg cube. All these combined to create a leg. However, with this knowledge, it was still not enough for me to create more complicated shapes, which brings me to the head, the most complicated shape of this entire model. In order to create the head, I had to break it down even further into smaller parts and the different shapes in order to picture it properly into how I can model it. Specifically, the head, back of the head, top of the head, the combination of the V shape of the head, and also the eyes, which are a light source. The head, or this base part of the head, was the most complicated part of the entire process of the entire model because it took a lot of understanding, a further understanding actually, of the tools in hand and how to use all of them in conjunction with each other and how to not break up the model a bit too much so it would see black lines or it would be flipped inside out. However, in the end, as you can see, I was able to make an actual head, and with all the previous knowledge combined, creating the final parts of the shape was very, very easy. In example, with the back of the head, initially I thought it was quite hard as there was a lot of different faces, as you can see by the little vents on the side, but at the end it was a breeze, walk in the park. And with all these tools combined, understanding them and finally rigging them and posing a robot, I was able to create the final product. Next, I will be talking about the Still Life Fantasy model. In the Still Life Fantasy project, I had to make another model based off another reference, which you see right now. Although this reference is much more difficult, I had more fun making it, as I had to learn different tools to make the different shapes as you see here. Those tools being the CV Curve tool, a bit of sculpting tools, the quad draw tools, and also how to use Blender, as that was the easier way for me to learn how to sculpt. This is the end result, although it does not look exactly like how it does in a reference. The shapes are all very similar and I believe are all almost identical to the one in reference. In order to create all these shapes, this entire model and asset, I had to use a lot of smaller combinations of models, such as the following you see here, the table, a bit of bronze items, a witch's hat, and also an owl, a magic wand, and also a bit of books, and some scrolls, and a piece of paper. First, I used the CV Curve tool, and in order to learn it, I forced myself to make the leg tables, which were harder to make in Partly Modeling, so by using the CV Curve tool, it saved a lot of time, which was the same standard issue with my books, which I just made a CV Curve model of it in 2D, then extruded it in order to make it look 3D, and changed the softness of it, the edges, in order to finally make it look more paper and book-like. The rotation tool also was taught in order to make the wand, which was very easy to use with the guidance of Electra and a few friends. However, the hardest part of the entire process was making the owl and the hat, as the shapes were very complicated and I had to go into Blender to learn how to use all the different tools in order to sculpt and mold it into looking the shape that I wanted to. In the end, the shapes came out looking exactly how I wanted to, although not similar to the ones in the reference. It was an owl and I believe it looked like an owl. The hat was also very successful as well, although having to learn how to quad draw was the hardest part, which brings us to quad draw. Quad drawing, I've learned, took me a very long time to master. However, in the end, it came out well, and I was able to make the loops all align with each other, and it was very helpful to make because it made UV unwrapping and substance painting an easier option, which brings us to substance paint. Substance painting was importing a 3D model into a software and painting over it, and I took a little bit of time practicing that with this piece of paper, and after learning how to do it, I applied it onto different shapes like the book and also the owl. With all these tools combined, I was able to finally create the entire model before the deadline. And that is it for my Teaching Block 1 animation production process from Maxma. Thank you.